to another video. Oh my gosh, after over 8 months, I am finally returning to my Wings of Fire What If series, where I change an aspect of the books and create my own story out of it. I'm glad these are back, and I want you to know that they'll be better than ever now. This tale is genuinely one of my favorites I've ever made. Thank you so much to 𝙈𝙬𝙍𝙬 for suggesting this concept. So, here's the topic. What if the prophecy called for an IceWing? There are lots of twists and turns to this, and a great overall message. It's a piece very close to my heart, and I hope you guys adore it just as much as I do. Things are going to be very different for our Dragonets of Destiny. But before we begin, a huge shout out to my patrons. Dev95, Thistle, Noopto, Pyronuke, Avril, Pancake, Escarada, Adequin, Alex Cleaver, Shadowhunter, Moonclaw, Isaac, Iris, Minecraft9, Pantala Resident, Horizon the Furwing, and Crystal. Thank you all so much for supporting me. Links to their social medias are in the description down below. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. Real quick, thank you to Newtspring for creating the lovely character designs you'll see here, and Ditzyblues for making the art. They both literally blew me away with these, and they're so special. Absolutely jaw-dropping efforts that are a true display of talent. Follow them on their social medias linked below. I hope they both know how awesome they are. And now, it's time to venture into the Ice Kingdom, years before the events of Book 1 even began. Vidar wrapped his talons around a smooth, icy eggshell. The wind of his home kingdom brought about a new chill, far different from the danger of his choice. The whistle of air seemed to beckon him back toward the igloos he last saw years ago. I have the option to go back, Vidar thought in the stillness. When Mother was dying, she told me she'd make up a lie if I needed one, a reason to say why I was gone. But she knew better than I did that nobody even noticed me. Not the Queen, not my neighbors, not the dragons I once called my friends. They'd hate me if they did remember, but I can't blame them. I'm unremarkable, and that might just be why I was led to the strangest IceWing egg of them all. Vidar eyed its exterior carefully, noticing the way white intermixed with pale blue. Sure, sometimes this tribe did have eggs that strayed from gray, but this? Even the way the baby inside squirmed felt laced with a greater power, more mysterious than the potential of any other. Fascinating, the IceWing thought. Lifting his head, Vidar surveyed the surrounding region. The egg was entirely alone, left atop endless layers of snow. From its spot in the jagged mountains, the only other sight to behold was a frozen puddle to the left. It displayed no cracks, the temperature far below freezing here. Why would someone have left you here, Vidar wondered. IceWing mothers do have their babies hatch on the coldest peaks, but not near any water. If the dragonet inside hatched, she would surely drown. Still, the Dragonet prophecy asks for one of your kind. It's a pretty packed list, I'd say, but this is more important than me. And I think you were abandoned here so that you would never leave. Vidar frowned, picturing a parent leaving behind an orphan for no other to find. The villagers out east would have taken any baby in. Then, the thought hit him. Perhaps this was a divine act of the prophecy. Vidar's eyes grew wide, tucking the egg closer now. He wrapped it in a sling made of leather, hoping to still keep it cool. Ash is bound to deliver the Mudwing Dragonet easily, and Webs will find our Seawing. I'm just grateful Destiny does not call for a Skywing. With a torturous Scarlet on the throne, any would surely die just to grasp at the remains of what she might do. But you, thought as he looked down at the strange and oversized egg one final time, readying to fly to warmer mountains, are going to change the world. A large tail seemed to whack at the edges of its temporary home, the movement unnoticed by its protector. Vidar had little idea just how right he was. The Dragon of Two Worlds. Large, sharpened claws extended from the edges of silver talons. Chilling water brushed at the scales of a young dragonet as he got closer to his target. Almost, Seay thought, quickening his dive. Almost. In one swift and sudden movement, he finally sank his teeth into the back of a fish. The animal split in two instantly, small speckles of red taking the place of dirt in the water. Seay laughed as he quickly swallowed it, splashing his siblings with the back end of the tail. "Did you guys see that?" he asked, shaking off the rest of the icy droplets. Clay, Tsunami, Sunny, and Starflight all squealed, though the young IceWing denied she let out such a sound. "I did not scream," Tsunami said, causing Seay to only laugh harder. "I was just warning Sunny." Sunny shot her sister a look of indignation. "And why am I the only one that needs to be warned?" Tsunami's response was, offering only an awkward shrug. Seay shook his head, spitting out the remaining fish bones that were still stuck in his teeth. "Tsunami, aren't you made for this too? The Kingdom of Sea gets super cold." "Not as cold as the Ice Kingdom," she muttered. "And besides, how would I know? I've never even been." Children, Vitter began playfully, smiling at the icy water spilled on the stone beneath his talons. Seay grimaced slightly. "Probably reminds him of home." "We'll get the lake all warmed up for the rest of you, but you know Seay needs his time too." Tsunami gave an eye roll her brother knew was layered with no real frustration at all. The two of them were close. Really close. After all, they were similar in so many ways. But then there were the days their differences showed the most. The day Seay seemed more like the only dragon he could call a father. "Vitter says I'm a hybrid. The dragons like me don't really exist out there in the world. One of my parents was a IceWing, and the other an IceWing. If this war is as violent as they say, how would anyone have the time to cross a border like that? Or the bravery? Starflight says it makes me super rare and special. I want to believe him, and I do a lot of the time. But I just can't help but notice the way this prophecy has changed everything for the Guardians." "Well, Kestrel couldn't have possibly been more miserable before this, I guess. It's too bad Webbs died as he brought back Tsunami's egg. I could have learned things from him about who I am. But Dune and Vitter? They had things left. I can see it in their eyes during every history class. They miss something. Whether it's their sand or ice, or maybe another dragon out there, I just feel like my existence changes too much. I'd understand if they had me stay behind while the rest of my siblings go off to save the world. I'm not even in the prophecy. I'm the dragon with no destiny, the child of two worlds. I'll always be different from this family. No one talks about it, but it's true. No one other than Kestrel, I mean. I see this look in her eyes every day, like my existence isn't right. I hate it. It makes me want to curl up into the lake when Vitter makes it frozen and just never break through the icy surface again." Sunny says I shouldn't think like that. I didn't even tell her I felt that way, but she sees through everything. This world is lucky to have her. She's different too. I don't know exactly how. Tsunami doesn't take Kestrel's stance. She's made me stronger, I think. But I owe a lot of this to Vitter. He said there was no one around my egg. I don't think I would have made it. I can't help but wonder, though. If my mom or dad is still out there, would they want me now? They had no idea what would hatch out of that shell. But since I'm here, drafted to end the war, would they be proud? Or maybe scared? Horrified of what I am? A freak that can't ever be classified. Clay nudged Seay's shoulder gently, taking him right out of his daze. It was grounding, like the frost he dreamed of himself surrounded by, in the dark water of every fantasy. Seay was different. Not enough, but too much. That he saw himself, anyway. And the best way to deal with it was to solve everybody else's problems. Make himself feel worthy of sticking with the group, knowing full well that if he didn't, Kestrel would make more excuses on why they should throw him out. "I got it," the icy dragonet said, beaming at Dune. "You can wait at the table." Dune's face contorted into confusion, saying nothing. "Come on, rest," Seay continued. "I can take care of the rest of dinner tonight." After a long moment, the Sanding eventually let out a low grunt, mumbling words Seay did not hear. He hoped they were not ones of gratitude. "I need to earn my spot here." It was what Seay did. Setting the table, preparing the lecture room, and changing the lake temperature were among his common self-appointed tasks. Vitter tried getting him to cease ages ago, saying how it was the responsibility of the Guardians, but Kestrel only encouraged the sacrifice. Let him waste his energy. It's not like he's going to be the one out there with the rest. Seal's heart sank on that day, reaching a point deeper than the ocean abysses he read about in the learning cave. It was as though all his worries and fears of what he could never be were proven right. Those are just supposed to be things we beat ourselves up about, he thought as he went over to the sleeping bunks. But to have Kestrel say it's all right? I mean, is she wrong? She knows far more about the world than I ever will. I know what my destiny is now. It's to stay here and never leave. Never let the world see scales of blue and white. My type of gray is there for dragons to fly over as they soar across the mountaintops, never knowing the horrors of what lurks beneath the cliffs. Tucking his large tail between his legs, Seay retired to bed earlier than his siblings that night. Seay awoke to the repeated tapping of something bumpy against his face. "What?" he mumbled, eyes still squeezed shut. At his steadfast refusal to stand, additional talons shook the dragonette's shoulders. Seay recognized their warmth instantly. Sunny. At her frantic touch, Seay shot up from his spot on the cot. Small snowflakes and water droplets cut from unused scroll paper sat on the desk by his bed. The hybrid dragonette's face fell upon seeing Sunny's terror. Before he could say another word, Tsunami lifted a shushing claw in front of her mouth. Clay and Starflight's eyes pointed to the cave exit. Seay slipped off his makeshift mattress, staying as quiet as possible. "Morrowseer," Starflight said at last, trembling. "What?" "Morrowseer. You've never heard Kestrel talk about him when she gave us lectures?" Tsunami asked. Seay shook his head. Despite his trembling, Starflight spoke next. "We don't know exactly who he is outside of the stories Kestrel told. The ones Sunny overheard mostly. But he's the dragon in charge of all of this, and he's far from forgiving. I woke up when I heard Vitter arguing with her. He's coming here, tonight, to check up on all of this." "Oh," Seay began. "But what's wrong with that?" Sunny's face wore an expression the sea ice hated. Pity. "Stop feeling these things about me," Seay thought to himself, moving to make himself smaller. It was a hard task when his body was so unnaturally big. "Please, give your sadness to somebody who deserves it." "Seay," Tsunami started slowly. "Morrowseer doesn't know we don't have a purebred IceWing egg." Oh. Oh no. His worst dreams were coming true overnight. That means the real prophecy egg is still out there, and Morrowseer's about to find out, Seay said, growing more breathless as the seconds passed. Clay nodded reluctantly. The entire destiny had failed because he breathed. Drowning shame flooded across Seay's scales, pooling into his insides. His heart only moved in small, fitful beats. There's no way I'm surviving the night. But even worse, what might Morrowseer do to Vitter for failing? To Kestrel and Dune for never saying a word? And to my brothers and sisters for surviving as an incomplete group? Everything is in jeopardy because of me. But it's okay, Sunny said quickly. We'll just talk to the Guardians before he arrives. Yeah, Clay added. Don't worry. We won't let him or Kestrel do anything to you. Seay tried to hide how unconvinced he was, curling deeper into himself. It was then Starflight piped in with a hastily crafted idea. What if we lie to Morrowseer? Tsunami's brow furrowed. Come again? I mean, what if we pretend Seay is a full IceWing? There's no chance that's going to work, the hybrid said. I have too much noticeable Seawing in me. Anyone would see right through it. Look at my tail. It looks like a whale's. I'm not sharp and spiky, and I don't even have the bioluminescence to pass as a 𝙈𝙬𝙬 either. Sunny frowned, evidently deep in thought. The group huddled closer together in the sleeping quarters, hoping the guardians could not sense their whispering. If anyone took a quick look at you, I think they'd guess IceWing. We could attach some fake spikes to fill in the gaps, but I don't want you to have to change anything about yourself, Seal. You shouldn't have to do that. The same look flashed again. Seal avoided her green gaze. That has to work, Xiaomi replied. It's now or never. We'll fill in the guardians on the plan. I know Kestrel absolutely hates you and everything, but even she doesn't want to face Morrowseer's inevitable wrath. Not one of them said it aloud, but Seal knew they must have all had the same thought as he did. The prophecy called for an IceWing. There was no bending the rules when it came to tens of thousands of lives, and all those that would come after. Was it even possible to complete their destiny with the wrong dragon at the head of it all? Seal and the others rushed to the Guardians' cave, explaining their idea. Kestrel let out a thin wisp of smoke from both her nostrils, eyes fiercer than ever. However, even she could not deny what was at stake with their sudden visitor likely only wing beats away. Cover up every single one of his blue scales, was all she said. Forever. Seal gulped as quietly as he could manage, petrified of the thought. He caught Vidder's sympathetic stare. He felt so far from him across such a big room. The Dragonets of Destiny worked quickly to conceal what made Seal a hybrid. They painted the patches of his body that were a blue too bright to be an IceWing. They had him tuck his tail a certain way so that the fork seemed to fade. Stalactites from the ceiling were snapped off and colored to form spikes. If one did not look at Seal for too long, he did fit in now. He could see it in his watery reflection. He looked like an IceWing, or as close as a whole one he could ever get. This has to be enough, Seal thought, feeling pain as the mountain began to move. Morrowseer was about to enter from behind the rock. Don't look at me for too long, please. You shouldn't even have to, regardless if I was like this. From the moment towering darkness entered the cave, Seal understood just why everybody was so afraid of Morrowseer. His very presence demanded respect and power. From the few scrolls he had read, the Dragonet thought Morrowseer must be the biggest dragon who has ever lived. Smoke filled the center room as he squeezed through the entrance, growling low. Bright yellow eyes scanned every dragon before him. Morrowseer, Vidder said, Dune casting a surprised look at how he was the first to speak. It is an honor to have the very discoverer of this prophecy here with us. The gigantic Nightwing said nothing for a long moment, tail hitting the cold stone in a way appearing impatient. Show me all of them, Morrowseer said at last. Tell me about the prophecy dragonets in your years here. At his command, each was displayed before their imposing observer. Vidder explained the personality and strength of each Dragonet of Destiny, listing the very traits that Seal adored about them all. For once, Kestrel kept her snout shut. He wondered vaguely whether Vidder had made her agree to that. And that Starflight, our Nightwing. His mother would be proud of him if she got to visit, the Tundra Dragon said. Starflight avoided Morrowseer's violating eyes. They seemed to see through every flaw and crack. Sunny and Clay were still shivering from their time before him. Tsunami tried to pretend she was not, but even her tremors were noticeable to a dragon trained to see and fix everything. Starflight scampered to his siblings once he got the chance. And those are our group. And Seal, of course, our IceWing. Morrowseer let out a huff. Surprised you didn't show off who is supposed to be your second strongest. Why is this one an afterthought to you? Vidder's breath caught in his throat, as Seal grew pale. Don't let him notice your fear. Don't let him notice anything, he thought about himself. We just thought you might not be as interested. He shares the same strengths as the others. Morrowseer moved for the first time since he had planted himself on the cave floor. He stepped towards Seal, a growl seemingly ready to escape his dry throat. IceWings are filthy enough, but you couldn't even bother to bring me a real one. That's unfortunate. I wanted to watch him die. What's Morrowseer talking about? Seal thought. And how does he know I'm not a full IceWing? We did everything right. I don't know what you're talking about, Vitter breathed out. I took him from my kingdom. Sir, you know I respect you greatly, and this prophecy. I wouldn't lie to protect somebody else's scales if it meant the world might not be saved. So even Vitter thinks we'll fail because of me. I don't blame him, but it just makes it more true. What Seal did not expect was Kestrel's voice to fill the space next. The Skywing hissed, the sound low. I wouldn't betray the Talons for mixed blood. Seal tried to hide his shock. Even Kestrel was lying. For him? Or for her? Morrowseer's look was unreadable, controlled. Another way of messing with them, just like this whole messed up display. Very well then, the Nightwing said, tone obviously unbelieving. I guess you won't mind me looking closer. I know the enemy better than any. Morrowseer lowered his towering form, and Seal swore he saw a twisted smirk grow at just the edges of his snout. Great ice dragon and sea spirits. He'll know for sure when he sees the paint. The Nightwing's gaze stretched across every inch of Seal, practically tearing him apart. Every layer of mistakes identified. He thought sudden death was undeniable, but after minutes of horrid analyzing, Morrowseer seemed to straighten himself. I have to hand it to you. This circus is better run than I thought. You raised some dragonettes the world wants to see take back the power. Only, there's one that doesn't quite fit, and I'll have to decide how to plan his absence. Before Seal could take another breath, Morrowseer's claw reached toward his trembling shape. He flicked his tiniest talon against one of the fake spikes. He flicked it across the room, causing it to launch to the opposite wall. A few small scales of blue were beneath it. Found you. Seal could do nothing more but run, leaving behind his family, all he ever had. He would not dare put them in danger by living. The Guardians might die otherwise. He scrambled to the other side of the cave, flapping his wings so that he might slip past the light hole. It was dark now, bathed in midnight. He headed toward the lake, wondering what stretched below it in the places they were not allowed to reach. He ignored the screams of Sunny, now muffled by the water. Just as he was about to dive fully, Seal caught another shout. It was one of utter agony, dipped in the sound of splattering blood. He whipped his head around, mouth agape at what met his eyes. Morrowseer murdered Dune, right in front of all of them. With one large claw swipe at one of his teachers, a father was dead. Crumpled in dripping crimson, a slash across his throat. No, 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 no! I did this. I killed Dune when I tried to save him. Morrowseer readied fire in his form, preparing to aim it at Kestrel. The Skywing roared, ducking to the side. The room was chaotic in a way time would never fix. His siblings either sobbing or screaming as the old Nightwing made more marks in their scales. Go! Tsunami and Vitter yelled at once, facing Seal for what might be the last time. Get out of here! Seal still hesitated, frozen in the most unwelcome and terrifying way. Tsunami shook her head, dazed. He can't kill the rest of us in the prophecy. Even Morrowseer isn't that stupid. But he can kill you. You're one of us, but you need to go somewhere safe. Go far, far away, Seal. We'll find you, I promise. Vitter nodded wearily, wincing at the pain in his ribs. Morrowseer was growing more furious as the fight continued. Seal had nothing left but to please the rest of them one final time. He submerged himself in the cold water, following the path of a tunnel system he knew nothing about. Luckily, he had gills just strong enough to last a few hours in the current. If he did not, 2 would have died that day. Maybe more if the rest of the Guardians lost their lives too. Then my siblings will have nobody. Nobody. Oh, great and powerful moons I have yet to see. My worst fear in the world came true. Somebody died because I exist. Seal swam until his muscles could bear the crushing weight of the depths no longer. Gasping and sputtering, he threw his soaked body over a rock in the underground river. He faintly acknowledged blood beating against his legs, having scraped against submerged stalagmites. Seal paid no real attention to the pain, though. All he could do was cast Dune's dying pain upon himself. My whole world might be... They probably all are. Is Tsunami right? Would Morrowseer really keep the rest of them alive? He sounded weird about all of this. The prophecy. He called me the enemy before he even knew more about me. But even if he wouldn't, where does that leave Kestrel and Vidar? If this was my last time seeing them, I will mourn the days they never got for the rest of my life. Seal flipped himself onto his back with his remaining strength, vision growing dark. The sound of fiercely rushing water drowned out the heartbeat that dominated his chest. As his world grew dark in a way he succumbed to with defeat, Seal wondered whether this would be the last place he ever saw too. A dragon dying before he can ever see the land he was meant for. Maybe I deserve it. I just hope my fate isn't the same as Tsunami, Starflight, Clay, and Sunny. I'd die 1,000 times for them to be okay. Seal felt his body lose all fight, overwhelmed with exhaustion. Consciousness faded in a way surprisingly peaceful and welcoming, like the oceanic abyss in his dreams. And Seal let go. For once, he embraced the dark, rather than feel different because of it. When the weakened Dragnet awoke, it was to a glow overtaking the world behind his eyelids. Letting out a pained groan, Seal tried swatting at the light, as though it would obey a slack arm. Soon, the green and blue past his closed eyes became too bright to ignore. As tiny water droplets sped past his cheek, Seal remembered exactly where he was. He shot up suddenly, letting out a cry at the way his body ached. But what changed everything was what his lids moved to show him. The underground river system was flooded with natural light. It was something out of a fantasy scroll, though, not the kind of illumination the sunhole provided each sunset. Great ice dragon, Seal let out, utterly transfixed on the world around him. Every aquatic mushroom in the tight space was glowing, taking up great power. He had been so used to the emptiness. The journey, even to get just his resting rock, was full of enveloping black, and it was what he was met with again in his sleep. Now, the darkness was no more. The mushrooms and algae seemed to lead endlessly out of the tunnel. Seal could not help but gasp, muscles loosening at the eerie beauty of it all. It seemed like a goddess was taking control of the world and guiding him to life. That's silly to think, Seal said. He wondered whether it was in his head or out loud. Nothing here felt real. It was impossible to tell. But don't the IceWings believe in some kind of sky spirit that takes their reincarnated souls to new eggs? That's the kind of presence I feel down here. Like I felt in my earliest memories. Someone having me be born. Someone protecting me, even now. But that's just a IceWing thing, right? And it's superstition. So why does it feel so real? Seal reached a shaking talon toward the bioluminescent glow, unable to suppress a surprised laugh at how it only seemed to get brighter as he drew closer. All he had left before his continued descent was words. If there is anyone here, he began, voice unsure, though growing steady. Please protect my friends. My family, even the ones I never got to meet. That's even if the Dragnets of Destiny are still alive, Seal thought with a wave of grief. How long have I been out? Still, he continued. You don't have to protect me, so thank you. He wondered whether he would have even continued without the light. A death here would have been slow, but was it deserving? It was weird. And here it was hard to think those things. The kind that came so easily before, and now should more than ever. Seal shook the remaining water off his scales, knowing the action was pointless. He had to continue in the cold. The Dragnet closed his mouth like he had nothing left to say to the mystery presence he felt. In reality, however, he had a million formless feelings he could never express. It changed everything, like how 𝙈𝙊𝙍𝙁 believed Seal's own existence would too. The icy dragonet had carefully searched the mountains for hours. Nothing. The sky was bright now, but it was in no way indicative of how much time really passed. Seal would have believed any amount of time revealed to him with how much his body stayed sore. He frowned, scanning every cave opening. None seemed like what he assumed his would. That was the problem with the secrecy of the Guardians. Seal had no idea where he was raised. It was always a mystery never meant to be told, not until all of this was over. But this was his first time in a war-torn world, and it all felt oddly quiet. Save for the rustling of birds in faraway trees, no sound came from the kingdom he was stranded in. Oh, which one is it again? Seal thought. I can't remember. I was never any good at geography. That was Starflight's thing. Would I do for Starflight right now to tell me what I should do? Or Tsunami instructing me how to keep being brave? Or 𝙈𝙁𝙍𝙁's warm smile, like he accepts me for who I am? Or Sunny and Clay's hugs that said 1,000 things all at once? I'd even take Kestrel's light, always unspoken satisfaction for my extra good training session days. Why did she even keep me around? Why did she lie to Morrowseer for me? It might have been the very thing that killed her, but surely she should have known that it may. Seal sighed, finally resting in a cave edge that overlooked the mountain stretch. It was beautiful out here. He could see the full sun, and not just a portion of it through the light hole. He smiled, though slightly uncomfortable from the added warmth. Seasons were a thing out here. Maybe it was summer? He lowered his head onto his two outstretched claws. Staring off into the world was an oddly beautiful thing, and that feeling of someone gentle watching was still there, like the hum of birdsong through the cave walls. Faint but present. Loving always. Maybe he had always dreamed it, though. Like he may have dreamed up her. I was delirious. It probably meant nothing, Seal said aloud to himself. He lied there in relative silence, nearly dozing off until the sound of his own stomach snapped him out of it. The dragonet groaned, rolling over onto his back. Food. I have no real idea how to hunt, but there has to be fish in the river below. I do know how to get those. Seal peacefully dove down into the grass, hoping that by some miracle his friends would appear from the tree line, showing they were all alive, and that his search could finally end at last, and that Morrowseer was dead. If anyone could do it, it'd be Tsunami. Right, fish? The few still swimming in the creek said nothing, of course. Seal sighed, sticking a talon through one of them easily. It was tiny and barely filling. Maybe the two tribes he was from needed more than just the one living here. The hybrid shrugged, slicing into more fish. Each tasted better than the last, quelling his hunger slightly every time. Just as he was about to find one more straggler, however, a twig snapped nearby. Seal's neck craned toward where the sound came from. He sniffed the air, but to no avail. Everything seemed the same out here. He was not used to anything but the sense of his family and the brush of rock. "Hello?" the dragonet asked, hoping with a sudden spark that it was the dragonets of destiny, returning to say they had made it, that his search could end here forever. Part of him was right to think it was too good to be true. Before Seal could react, a harsh force collided with the back of his neck. All the breath seemed to leave his body in a sudden spurt, as his skull slammed into the dirt. "Ow!" he hissed, dazed. "You're not my friends?" The dragon behind him only barked out a terrible and gruff laugh, the sound harsh. Against the ringing of his ears, Seal swore he heard muffled words. He tried turning himself over, but the resistance was met with only a fiercer grasp. The dragon over him had scales of pale sand. The hybrid squinted, dizziness growing nauseating from the tackle. "Wait, this isn't the desert?" was all he could mumble before a venomous tail barb jabbed itself into his wounded scales. Seal let out a yelp, feeling his body lose all strength yet again. As darkness reclaimed him, he caught the faint image of a IceWing at the side of his captor. Her look was different than his, though. She looked scared, guilty. It was the last thing Seay remembered as he blacked out. The young dragonhead awoke to his claws and wings bound. It reminded him of the action stories he read about when he was little, the kind Starflight worried about rotting his brain. Tsunami loved them, though. Even Kestrel did. Vitter brought new stacks for his hatching days sometimes. He did not let any of the other guardians see. Seay shared them with his siblings every time. Except, here, he felt far from the heroes of fairy tales. Turns out, waking up from being knocked out and poisoned was far less seamless than the scrolls made it seem. Seay groaned, failing to gather the strength to open his eyes. It's just the slightest shifting of his chains, a familiar voice, though muffled the last time, through the quiet. "Ah, look who's awake!" Seay finally peeked at who he was with. And wait, was the ground moving? He was inside a small caravan truck. He tried looking at what lay beyond the tarp, but the sandwing flicked his tail at him in warning once he turned his neck. I'm sorry, what is this?" Seay asked. His captor let out the same undeniable cackling laughter as before. His partner seemed far less amused, saying nothing. Her eyes were glued on the wood floor, irises the same hue as her scales. Light red. Dissimilar from the blood that left Dune, and this dragon looked too much like Dune for Seay to bear thinking of it longer. "You don't get it, do you, boy?" the sandwing started. "I'll give you a second to think. You're a freak. Mismatched scales, weird parts that shouldn't be there. And you're chained up in the back of a carrier cart. Does it make sense yet?" Seay shook his head, genuinely unknowing. His captor's frustration and humor slipped into confusion. "You're going to Burn's Weirdling Tower," his companion said. It was the first time she had spoken, likely the entire drive. Seay guessed so because of the way her voice rang with disuse, crackled. She still refused to meet his gaze. Upon noticing no reaction to her words, the gruff sandwing stayed shocked. "Did you hear what the pretty lady said?" "Oh, I heard," Seay replied. "I'm just not sure what that is, exactly." "And if it takes me any closer to my friends, or moving away from, or to the mountains, I can barely think. My head hurts so much." The Skywing finally looked up at him now. Her worry increased tenfold. Did he say the wrong thing? "I think I hit him too hard, Finch." Seay frowned. At least he knew one of their names. "Well, since you're about to spend the rest of your life in a miserable pet cage, I ought to tell you more about us in this operation, IceWing. Or, SeaWing? I don't know, whatever the moons you are doesn't matter to me. I just get paid for sending the Queen mutants." Fisk brusquely whacked him with her tail. "He's not a mutant. He's probably a hybrid." All the pain must have washed off in the river, Seay realized. "A hybrid in Scarlet's kingdom?" the sandwing let out. "Kid, you must be bold. Or stupid. Probably very utterly stupid. Especially if you don't know about the Weirdling Tower. Every dragonite is terrified to get sent there if they're not right." "Lucky for you, not being right in the head doesn't count for Burn," Finch muttered. The sandwing either did not hear her or simply did not care. "Who's driving this thing anyway?" Seay asked. It was not really a question he had, but he wanted the conversation off to where he was going to switch to where he once was. That was where everyone would likely still be, waiting. He needed to explore the cave he grew up in, even if it was to see bodies. He could not survive another day living a lie and thinking they were still out there. Finch replied this time, her head hanging low again. "We work with temporary walkers who pull us all the way. It's a good way of transporting dragons." She paused, like another word was meant to be there. The sandwing mouthed, "Cargo." "We don't know their names. They come and go for gold. And besides, little Missy over here can barely fly, and I would be much better at it if I didn't get that tear in my wing during the war. So I guess we can both say we sort of found each other in similar circumstances. We needed money. We are hurting the same way. and dragons like you are usually more slippery to catch. But I still got it in me. Ignore Shrub. Most of them usually get away now. The Sandwing, Shrub as Seal now knew, huffed. Dragonet knew it was now or never to ask about their location. Where is this Weirdling tower? And which kingdom are we in now? I think it's the Sky Kingdom. You said the name Scarlet earlier? She rules the mountain dragons, right? Shrub was too shocked by his lack of knowledge to answer. Finch, however, spoke for him. Yes. She works with Burn, his queen. As she deserves to be, Shrub said, letting out a whoop. Seal wondered whether Finch agreed. The Skywing continued. We're about to leave Scarlet's territory, though. We're headed for Burns. It's where her tower is. Shrub gave a smile, fairly toothless with age. But I need to go back to the dragons who need me. Kid, what dragons need you? You stick out like a sore thumb. You're white and blue in the middle of a forest. If anyone staying with someone as not camouflaged as you, they might just be as stupid as you've been yourself so far. Finch seemed interested, though. She pressed further. You're traveling with others? Seal shook his head. I'm not traveling. I live here, under the mountain. I don't know exactly where. Shrub's attention was finally caught, too. He stopped chewing on the piece of cactus that stung his tongue. Are you being raised in some kind of cult or what? Who is some hybrids in a mystery cave together? Not hybrids. I'm the only one like this, Seal added. There's a Mudwing, Seawing, and Sandwing with me, too. Even a Nightwing. Finch's eyes grew wide with the realization her partner evidently did not share. When were you hatched? Her tail twitched suddenly, mind deep in trailing thoughts. Seal did not answer at first, and so she repeated it. When were you hatched? He wondered whether to answer, if telling them might alter everything, but Finch's eyes were so different from her friends, if that was what they even were. On the brightest night, a few years ago. The Skywing turned to face Shrub. He spit out the cactus in his mouth, still disinterested. You do know what this means, right? 5 dragons hatched on the brightest night. That sounds like... It hit Shrub. The prophecy the other tribes believe in. Exactly, she said, scooting closer to Seal now. A new fire was in her eyes. Are you a Dragonet of Destiny? The question was intended to be simple, and the Dragonet knew that. But there were so many parts of it Finch could never understand. No, he said at last. I'm not. He kept his tone firm and unwavering, similarly to how Tsunami's always was when Kestrel confronted her. Finch's body stayed tense for a long moment, thinking more. Shrub shrugged, leaning back against the edge of the caravan. Well, that's a shame. We could have gotten so much more gold for him if he was. The big Sandwing sighed. Finch stared at Seal, and he swore she could see into his soul. Are you sure? Her voice was small now. The hybrid wondered whether it was because he was worth less now in profits, or if it was something more. With this dragon, he already did not know. Even a lifetime by her side would reveal little, Seal assumed. Shrub had not even scratched the surface. I'm sure, the Dragonet said. Trust me, I'm no hero, and my friends, they're probably just better off without me. Finch's face fell. She wanted to say more, but ultimately decided against it. Seal believed with his whole heart that technically was no lie. A dragon whose conception was forbidden could never save the world. Well, we've got a long ride ahead of us, Shrub grumbled. Might as well get some sleep as sunset creeps up. Who knows when we'll get any shut-eye again. Finch nodded curtly, wrapping her body in a woven blanket. It was patterned with butterflies, stitched by seemingly small and unsteady hands. A child's. One who was obviously not here. Seal frowned, shifting to see blurred colors move past them in the caravan. As his head tipped downward, he caught sight of his tail barb wound. It was throbbing in a way he did not catch earlier. Shrub was already asleep, sprawled across the vibrating floor. Finch saw Seal look at his injury and quietly pointed her tail at a piece of the cactus her partner had been chewing. Bright sting cactus, she whispered so faintly, Seal wondered if it was even uttered at all. She said it like he was supposed to know what it did or was, so he merely nodded to feign understanding. I don't want to kill anybody. With that, Finch laid her body out on the wood, curling up to take as little space as possible. She slept on her side, facing away from the other two. Seal felt sad in a way simple rest would never fix. He did not feel the pull of sleep until darkness finally loomed around them and on the tarp. He missed the glowing mushrooms, his heart aching. The hybrid dragonet stayed silent, trying to get comfortable in a world so different than the one he and his friends swore to save. As he eventually drifted off, Seal thought about what Finch said. It had too many layers to properly dissect now. I think she spent too long in a world without the light of the one who saved me. For the first full day, Seal awoke to nothingness. Usually in the cave, he was met with the sounds of tsunami shouting, Starflight's frantic realizations that they were going to be late for class, Clay's chewing before breakfast, and Sunny's shock over that fact every single time. Seal chuckled involuntarily at the memory, though the feeling soon grew bittersweet. Shifting to face the full caravan, the dragonet spotted his two captors. Finch was busy looking through her waste pack, searching for something. Shrub, on the other talon, lifted the tarp to look at their location. So that must have been what woke me up, Seal thought, slightly amused. Finally joined the land of the living, huh? The burling Sammy asked, suppressing a yawn of his own. Finch rolled her eyes, a little less guarded now. I tried to kill him yesterday, Shrub. Not the time for that phrase. Her partner tilted his head to the side, annoyed in a way not very serious. Finch continued on an unrelated note. Where are we now? Trekking through the desert. Pretty steady pace. I think Mystery Wings over there at the wheel fell asleep at one point, because we should have been closer. Mystery Wings? Seal thought to himself. He would have laughed if he were not still in rough binds, far away from the only home he ever knew. Vitter would have laughed. He totally would have tried to hide it, but he can't hide much from me. The reminiscing made his distance from their lives, and hopefully hearts still beating, hurt all the more. Can you guys please take these off? Seal asked, pointing his snout in still tightly wound around his ankles, wings, and claws. Finch looked at Shrub for approval. His captor said nothing. Should he not have asked that? I promise I'm harmless? Seal asked, flashing a smile. Shrub rolled his eyes, finally moving closer. One shot of frost breath, and Finch is going to fry you. You didn't even wrap it around his mouth, Shrub. Seal giggled at that one as the Sandwing's face lit up pink. I knew that. The trio continued on, moving deeper into the desert at a steady but sure pace now. Shrub hummed tunes reminiscent of the ones Dune did when he thought no one was listening. A deeper grief had settled into every one of Seal's bones, swelling into his heart, despite how he tried to hide it from the dragons who took him. Finch doesn't seem like a bad dragon, the hybrid thought, steadying his breaths. He took in each of her scales, noticing how they were scarless. She was a skywing in the middle of the biggest war the continent had ever faced. Should she not be on the battlefield, or at least too burned to ever return to one again? Finch fidgeted with her talons and tail each second she was not staring off into the space just past Seal's shoulder. Still, Shrub, seated to the right, was surprisingly just as difficult to analyze. He was old, but not nearly as ancient or large as Morrowseer. Seal shivered at even the thought of him. Different from Finch, the Sandwing scales were beaten. It seemed as though blood from past battles forever stained parts of his body. One of his wings was partly torn, leaving him mostly powerless in a world dominated by flight. Shrub said Finch can't fly either, Seal remembered. He cast a look at her, noticing nothing different from his own wings, or Kestrel's. She looks fine, though. I wonder what happened to her. Surely if this is Scarlet, as awful as I've heard, maybe she'd make Finch fight regardless of being grounded. A sudden bump in the trail after hours of relative silence snapped everybody out of their drifting thoughts. Finch sat up, ear twitching. Shrub grumbled something about a checkpoint. Are we close to the Weird Tower? Seal asked through dusty blinks. He coughed as sparse dirt entered the caravan, after both flaps were opened by new claws. Finch and Shrub said nothing. "Delivery?" a gruff voice asked. The pair nodded as a new sandwing approached them. An eye patch took up nearly the entire right side of his face. His tail bars seemed to hang on by only a small thread of thin tissue, making Seal feel sick. "That's gotta hurt." The new dragon grunted in acknowledgement of their wordless answer, stepping into the caravan to eye their captured hybrid, still in chains, much to his annoyance. Had it been days? Seal was hungry again. The one good thing about growing up in the cave as a prophesied destiny deliverer meant constant food. It was not easy to hunt, even though part of him felt like he was missing a segment of his life by not doing it. Upon noticing the scrutinizing stare of the jagged sandwing, the dragonette said nothing. "You two really outdid yourselves this time," the man began. "Burn and Scarlet are certainly going to be pleased. Most hybrids the Queen has are already stuffed. A toy might not be too bad. Good for burning off steam." Seal gulped while building at the back of his throat. "Finch told me she and Shrub don't kill anyone. But is it murder all the same if they leave me for somebody else to finish off? Or is it worse if I don't get to die, trapped like suffering prey, not knowing which day might ever be a merciful end?" Shrub let out a dry laugh, nodding. "Worth extra, don't you think?" The other sandwing eyed him. "Know your limits. You'll just be lucky if they still keep both of you out of this. Moons forbid." He spit out a piece of chewed tumbleweed at Seal's claws, leaving the caravan. With the signal to continue, a new sound met their ears. Talking. Lots of it. The hybrid struggled to make out every word, wanting to know what happened in the Sand Kingdom, and if he could make it any closer to his friends. Maybe if he were stuck here in a spot so populated, if they did escape and someone found them too, it would be talked about. They're the real Dragonettes of Destiny, Seal told himself. It'd be big news. And once I know where they are, I can get out of here. Or die trying, because I'm not going to stay stuck somewhere ever again. I feel the ice of the ocean and glaciers calling to me. I can have both. That weird spirit following me is showing that to my heart more every day. Seal whimpered at the heat radiating from the high sun, a feeling harsher in a place like this. Eventually, the cart came to a halting stop. Shrub stretched, jumping off the side exit. Finch hurriedly packed up her things, stuffing them into the overcrowded pouch. She cast a sad look at the blanket she wrapped herself in the night before, ultimately deciding on leaving it in the caravan. So, she'll just get to walk free after all of this, Seal realized with a frown. They'll just be back here, ready to do this to another dragon. Even if they don't like it, which I don't think Finch truly does, they're still choosing to do this. What other choice do they have, though? I don't know anything about them at all. I'm just a means to an end. I get it. I was like that to Morrowseer, too. I should just comply. It's easier that way for everyone. And I'll come back here if it puts the Dragonettes in danger. Seal thought particularly of Vitter, wondering how he might guide them elsewhere. Surely they had to have left the caves, right? If Morrowseer never returned, the Talons would be searching for his hide. And the oh-so-mysterious Nightwings, which the hybrid already doubted the true power of. I don't get a lot about the tribes. As usual, that was always Starflight's thing. But if Mr. Prophecy really was able to see into the future, wouldn't he know my egg would have been part Seawing? Seal flopped his shark-like tail against the wood. Did Vitter really change destiny? Are we able to do that? Is this all more moldable than I've ever been told? Or was Morrowseer just never right to begin with? He can't have been wrong, but even if he was, I know my friends. They have the power to stop all this, destiny or not. They believe in themselves, and the Guardians trust them too. Even Kestrel did, deep down, even though she didn't trust me. Seal sighed as he was lifted out and into the sand, metal binds clattering with every movement. He squinted at the sudden brightness overtaking his vision. Maybe when they save the world, there will be no more Weirdling towers. I mean, we escaped early. I'll be dead at some point during the years before they're done. But if it means no hybrid ever feels like me, I'll take it any day. I'm the only dragon who should take this fate. To Seal's sudden surprise, Shrub unlocked the chains around his wrists. The young dragon let out a gasp of relief, not realizing prior just how much circulation was cut from their tightness. Though the bind snapped to his wings stayed in place, he could finally walk. Small blessings. Finch ignored his gaze again, eyes boring into the sand like they shared a million secrets and answers all at once. Seal could finally properly take in the sparring fields all around him. They were intermixed with market stalls and full of shouting dragons. Again! Harder kick this time, one yelled. 2 doomsday cacti for the price of 1! Offer ends at the next hour! Oh, you miserable lizard! Use your tail! Assassin for hire! I'll take out Thorn! One of the Sandwing princesses! Anybody, I don't care! My resume will surprise you. Seal tried staring at everything happening all around him, overwhelmed by it all. He did not even notice his mouth was wide open in shock until Shrub pulled his wing chain to get him to hurry. Finch finally looked up, her expression wearing that same sympathy as before. If you feel bad, why are you doing this? He wanted to ask. Dragons made no sense to Seal. Maybe it's because I know nothing about the world at all, like how Princess Burn would let things be sold near her prized tower. But as Seal saw the grand and winding tower, it all made sense. It's a show of power. If Burn's possessions are above everything else, maybe other dragons will think their accomplishments are worth less. And it's a reminder of where outcasts go, the ones who speak up. A very daunting and cruel reminder. Seal frowned, keeping up with the duo before him. He knew speaking was likely unexpected and soon to be forbidden at a time like this. He was literally being sold to an oddity holder. However, the hybrid dragonite remembered something about the night he escaped. The moons were visible for one fleeting moment in the light hole, just at the edge, but enough to frame part of his sense of time. Seal started to ask, turning to his captors. How many days has it been since Imperial was a crescent? Or, like, a little bigger than one? Finch and Shrub stopped in their tracks. What? Seal repeated his question. The day I got separated from my friends, the biggest moon was a little larger than a slim crescent. You guys peeked out of the caravan a few times. What is it like now? Finch scrunched her snout. Shrub wondered whether to answer, an attempt to let him down easy. However, the pale skywing's one mercy left was to reply. 2 weeks. Seal was taken aback, breath deeply constricted without warning. 2 weeks? How did I survive in the tunnels for that long? Oh, sea spirits. I was searching the wrong mountains for my friends too to get that far. I have no idea where they are or where I've been. Do they think I'm dead? The thought brought about a pit in his stomach, one emptier than ever. I don't even remember eating down there. Did the dragon doing something save me, or was I just too delirious to recall anything at all? Seal's time seemed to fade as they approached the tower. Still, however, a small spark ravaged him. Maybe that's a good thing. If anything's happened to my friends, somebody has to know by now. They're out there. I know it. They didn't die with Dune. They couldn't. If this whole destiny thing is real, it'd be impossible. Right? The dragonite did not even notice they were at the base of the tower until a guard was speaking to his captors now. She was a slim sandwing, obviously underfed and tired. Her spear tip was worn down with use, wrappings on the bottom peeling off. Seal paid no attention to their conversation, dazedly following Shrub and Finch into the main entrance. On the first floor, there were already stuffed and beheaded dragon figures on the walls. The hybrid shivered, taking in all that made him different. Some were not too far off from himself. Did they walk in here alive, or was that Sandwing scout right earlier when he said I'm one of the few live catches? These people must have put up a good fight to have needed to be killed, though. Or maybe Burn didn't want to waste the resources. Seal's heart sank the deeper they went into the structure, hoping these dragons knew he shared their pain, and remembered their lives, even if he never got to see them in life. One was oddly colorful with no wings. However, there were buds where they were meant to be, rather than the scarring of torn-away flight. The hues of her soft scales, frozen in time now, were unlike anything Seal had heard stories of. He wondered how beautiful her spirit was. The thought made him nearly vomit. Every dragon here shared a story, and he believed he so obviously mattered the least. His friends could survive without him. These dragons had so much left behind, though. Existences in kingdoms, years of survival. Seal was just a kid who never left his bedroom. Do I matter less because of my fewer memories? He thought, head lowering. Seal could bear no longer to look at the bodies and scattered parts. Finch's chin dipped toward the floor long before they even finished making it through the first layer. Even Shrub was unsteady on his talons, though said nothing of it. As they made it to the third level, a speared sandwing stopped them. "You're headed to the very top today," he said firmly. Suddenly, a smirk found its way barely visible on his snout. Seal thought he was the only one who caught it at first. "Burn is personally visiting you today." Finch let out a tiny, inescapable gasp. Shrub sputtered. "What?" "Don't ask me why," the guard said, obviously lying about his obliviousness. It came out like poison from his tone. "She wants to thank you personally for your services to her collection." Terror sank into Shrub for the first time. He cast a weary glance at Finch, whose body stood unmoving. The guard pushed them up a few steps, harshly ripping the Skywing out of her disassociation. Seal knew just as well as they did what this might mean, and the soldier's attitude only proved their fears. Finch and Shrub had nowhere else to go. Every window, sparse and rare as they were in the tower, were barred, too small for even a scavenger to squeeze through. After a lengthy marked death, a growl, deservedly belonging only to who Seal could assume was Burn, sounded through the halls. There they saw her. She sat on a throne positioned at the end of the carpet, the chair coated in dust. Physical presence here was rare, judging by that in the hanging surprise of Shrub and Finch. Burn was colossal. She might even rival Morrowseer's bulkiness, despite being slightly younger in age. Her body was burned and draped in scars, so plentiful they seemed painted on by shaking claws. Fire seemed already burning in the back of her throat, ready to deploy at any moment's notice. Finch and Shrub instantly bowed, yanking Seal down to mimic them. Okay, so they did care somewhat whether he was a pile of ash or not right here in front of them. Good to know, the dragonette thought anxiously. Burn seemed to expect one of his captors to speak before she did. Shrub took the lead, noticing how Finch stayed stuck. "Your Highness, rightful queen of the Sandwings," he said, ceasing his bow. "Long live your power." Burn said nothing, forked tongue flicking in and out of her mouth, like a snake sensing something in the air. Clay yelped away from so many that slipped through the cave walls. The memory nearly made Seal smile, though he quickly covered any trace of it. "We have a high-value treasure to give to you today. And better this, he's a dragonette of destiny." Seal suddenly was sapped of all feeling. What? Shrub didn't believe it either. Deep down, I don't know if Finch did either. Maybe she wants to think it's true, but for another reason. He's lying to the queen, though. Or so he thinks. But I'm not a dragonette of destiny. I can never live up to them. Burn's cold black eyes finally shifted to land on Seal. He felt his privacy violated in the same way Morrowseer peeled back every layer through a stare alone. The hybrid shivered. After a long, dreadful moment, Burn let out a slightly amused huff. "I was going to kill you both for being too slow. You can't fly. You delivered less to me over the years. You're declining, both of you. You're distracted. You know your job, you fools, and I see where your loyalty lies. But now, you've chosen to lie to me. This is no dragonette of destiny." Burn gets it, Seal thought sadly. "You brought me a hybrid and tried to tell me he's great!" Her words hurt more than a dagger sliding through a heart. Everything said about Seal, whether through looks or Kestrel's remarks, all came crashing down as true for the first final time. He let his head fall toward the floor, wanting so badly to sink into the frozen lake of his home cave and never break the ice on his way back. Besides, the dragonettes of destiny were caught by Scarlet and their miserable guardians. Or the ones that slipped out of Morrowseer's claws. My traitor is already dead. I wanted so badly to rip apart Dune myself, but I was robbed of that chance. It never occurred to me that Dune must have been a traitor to the Sandwings. I know he left his life behind, but he did it for us. For me, too. Why would he risk it all for someone so unimportant? He died for me. Because of me. It's a guilt I'll carry for the rest of my days, whether they all end here or span to a lifetime behind these bars. But Burn just said they're alive. Sunny, Clay, Tsunami, Starflight, Kestrel, and Bitter. 3 moons. They're alive! But Scarlet has them in her talons. Can I really just sit here and let more dragons die? If I give up and let Burn take my scales, my friends might never get out of their prison. Scarlet has an arena, I think. She could make them fight there until they die too. The Sandwing Princess is going to murder Finch and Shrub. All of this is so much more complicated than the scrolls made it seem. They have family. Or at least Finch does. Somebody is waiting for her on the other side of this. Somebody she's done all of this for. They're not perfect dragons. But neither am I. I should give them the chance to make things right. A second chance. There has to be a reason why their deliveries have slowed. Maybe they don't want to do this anymore. Regardless, they won't get to again. They'll either leave with me or get crushed by Burn here, and I think chances are they'll take the former. All 3 of us can't fly, though, and that would be the only other way out of here. Think, Seal? We quickly took a look in the room around them. It was littered with more corpses and lone claws. However, there was something back where they came from. The stairs here were winding. If they disarmed the isolated soldier on their way down, they could run faster than Burn would be able to squeeze through her own staircases. I'll topple over the guard with my tail. It's big enough to sweep him off his talons, but I won't hurt him. I can save the world my own way, and it starts by letting no dragon die again. Once he's out of the way, we'll run until we reach a river system. I know swimming better than anyone, and I can guide Finch and Shrub through to somewhere else. Anywhere. After that, we'll go straight to the Sky Kingdom. Man, it's like shaking a hornet's nest. Scarlet and Burn are direct allies. That should be the last place I head to, though. But maybe it'll be the spot they least expect me to soar toward. And there, I'll find my friends. Save them, no matter the cost. But to do it, I need to be myself in the ways Vitter, Tsunami, and Sunny and the others taught me. No more hiding my body. No more concealing my mind. I'll do it for all the dragons I've seen in here, and the ones who I hope will never have to fear this place again. Is this plan absolutely mad? Definitely. But what other choice do we have? I hope Finch and Shrub follow me. We'll talk about all of this after, and they really have nowhere else to go. Here goes nothing, and everything at the same time. Even with the lingering spirit of the mystery goddess waning in a spot such as this, Seal drew from his own strength. Hey, he said suddenly, stepping toward Burn. The princess snapped her jaws like a maddened crocodile, hunching forward. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Finch's face could not possibly grow more pale. You're wrong, don't you realize that? But you are right about one thing. I'm not a dragonet of destiny, and I never had to be who I am. I'm a Seawing and an IceWing, and I don't want to wear that with shame anymore. I'd rather deal with the pain of fighting you than ever let myself believe for another day I'm not supposed to be who I was born as. Burn roared, the sound wholly bestial. Before she could bark another word or lunge toward him, Seal raced back. He bolted, pushing Shrub and Finch beside him. They scrambled, following. Though it may have seemed as though they had no other option, Seal knew they truly had a different choice. They could have made up a million more lies to please Burn. Called me crazy. Anything. But they did not. There's hope for the 2 of them, Seal thought as he sprinted through the staircases, knocking down the Sandwing from before. Burn shook the Weirdling tower as she ran, but her descent was far from fast, just like the young hybrid properly predicted. Where are we going? Finch asked, voice surprisingly trusting, though strained. Shrub's eyes were wide and frantic, but he stayed at their bouncing wingtips. Rivers, Seal shouted, running past strands of shocked merchants and soldiers. I'll take you the right way. You just have to trust me. As the trio fled further from the central part of the Sand Kingdom, moving endlessly as jails of murder stayed steadily behind them, dragons flying to go quicker, they finally reached a body of water. Big, calm breath before you dive. Got it? Finch nodded shakily, being the first to submerge herself. Shrub seemed to hesitate, but only for a moment. He inhaled strongly, following after Finch. Seal cast one last look behind them. Sandwings arrived in troves, but they would never find the trio they searched for. Not here, when the water in all its forms was so natural to Seal. He let its coolness wash over him, a new confidence taking control of his bones. The world in all its loudness faded, growing muffled in the current. The presence of a river and a space so dry must have been a gift from the goddess he felt. Or maybe he led himself here. Seal was not sure either way it went. But he knew one thing as he led the way, letting who he was guide every step and turn. For the first time in his life, a faint glow elicited from the scales near his hips. There were only a few scattered ones giving off that light, but their power and presence reminded Seal of the mushrooms back in that cave so long ago. Am I that light? Was it who I am, really the entire time? No matter what is true, I'm going to find my friends. I'll rescue them all from Scarlet's arena, and maybe we'll be free of this place. We'll find somewhere far to go, and then end this war how we know we really need to. But I figured something out in these difficult weeks, and I think it's the very reason why Vitter was guided to my egg. I don't have to be in a prophecy to be great. Did you guys catch that? Seal was the one who lit up the tunnel the entire time. And that's pretty much it for this video. Wow, this was a great one, and I really want to hear which parts you guys liked most, so please, let me know down below. Feel free to drop the what-if concepts you want me to cover too. And thanks again to Gaming Zebra. I hope my ideas did your suggestion justice. Seal is just the absolute best, and writing about Shrub and Finch was endlessly fun. I appreciate the artists involved in creating the key art for this. Newtspring and Ditzyblues, you are stellar. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.